policy that I'm representing here this morning. My name is Sonja Stojanović Gajić, and I'm director of BCSP. And I want to welcome you to the academic part of the Belgrade Security Forum, which has become a trademark of this conference and which has for its aim since its beginning to create an opportunity for an exchange and dialogue between the academics and policymakers, journalists, and people that usually do not have patience to listen to academics or don't ask questions to academics. We believe that an academic event is an added value to a policy forum like this because it takes some time to reflect and ask questions about the world order, key actors, possible scenarios and consequences. And this is why we invited academics to help us analyze burning issues. In the past, we've discussed different burning issues for the region, such as regional security dynamics, migration crisis, but also collective memory in the light of 100th anniversary of First World War, as well as solutions by different actors such as EU and global security. And today's event is also tackling one of the burning issues, both for international relations theory and practice. And I might say that Belgrade is the world this year, and it has started earlier this year with the initiative of our colleagues from Faculty of Political Science, some of whom are here today, who have been hosts of International Studies Association branch for Central and Eastern Europe, discussing international relations in the age of anxiety. And we follow up this discussion with invitations to some of the speakers, also at today's event, where we discuss crisis of the values and norms as we know it, or we're socialized in it, or what we called crisis of liberal order, and what are the implications for regional security. And the regions we care about most are Europe and Western Balkans, and these are the topics that are going to be discussed this morning. This wouldn't be possible without the key people working on this event for a whole year, which is not me. I'm there just to find money and talk to some tough guys, but people behind the event are my colleagues, Filipe Eidus from Faculty of Political Science and also head of the management board of BCSP, who has been initiator of academic events since the year zero, and has worked hardly to attract the right people to speak at this event. Isidora Stakic, an academic coordinator who was in contact with all the participants and is in charge for everything you're going to see today, and also other colleagues from Faculty of Political Science, Marko Kovačić, Nemanja Đuverović, who helped us attract the right speakers. The event won't be possible with also financial support from Open Society Institute Europe that has supported us from the year one, and the OSCE mission to Serbia, who I want to thank specially because without the OSCE mission to Serbia support, the brightest and the best students of faculties of political science and security studies would not be able to afford possibly tuition for MA and PhD programs in security studies or to experience study abroad and summer schools relevant for this field. So OSCE mission to Serbia has greatly contributed to development of security studies in Serbia, also by supporting Journal of Regional Security that has been a partner of BSF since the year one. And last couple of years, special issue of the Journal of Regional Security is based on papers presented at this academic event, which is going to be a situation also this year. And last but not the least, as coming from organization of civil society, I want to highlight that security studies are not done only by academics, but also applied research by think tanks, and both BCSP and a range of other organizations in Serbia have benefited from support of OSCE mission to Serbia. With this introduction, I would kindly ask Ambassador Andrea Orizio to also welcome you on behalf of our key supporter of the academic event for this year. Ambassador, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Sonja. Thank you very much. I could see that you are a former member of the mission from the kind words you were saying. It was not for that, I hope. It's really for me a great pleasure to be here because Belgrade Security Forum has a very, very special place in my experience here. I still remember very well when I had just come, more or less exactly 3 years ago. More or less exactly is a very OSCE way. You have more or less and exactly. OSCE can put all this together. 3 years ago, we had the first Belgrade Security Forum, and I remember it was for a change, not an easy moment in the relationship between Belgrade and Pristina. And all delegations coming from Pristina were not coming, with one exception. The Follow Us meeting we had organized together with you, which meant parliamentarian women from Belgrade and from Pristina, after a fierce discussion on status-related things, started focusing on gender issues, and starting from there were several initiatives in parliaments, in local authorities, in central authorities, which made possible advancement in that issue. So a very concrete example. Then I saw here, the following year, and that year as well, regional leaders showing some engagement there. But also in this very inspiring room, last year, I had the pleasure to be the only man participating in the conference, Why More Women? And that, of course, I cannot remember. And I was feeling minority, which again is again a very OSCE-like way of acting. When we are a minority, we feel perfect. And also, I would like to share with you the way OSCE tries really to help. And I think this is very much part of the subject this year, and of the security conceived in a more comprehensive way. You know, OSCE is itself a very special animal. It has its own paradoxes. It is an organization which is not an organization. It is an organization which does not have member states, but participating states, because it is more a permanent conference. It has its own fragilities. It is the largest regional thing. What does it mean? I mean, it's either it's largest or it's regional. But it is true. And thanks to this, it is the one which can really have a different approach than others. Also, when we think of projects, what for us is a big financial project is for some other organizations the maybe starting point to consider that a feasible project. At the same time, the way we work has some specificity. When you will hear me this saying quite often, we work on the basis of partnership, and partnership with all stakeholders. Because our mandate here is a very specific one, is to help the reforms and the modernization process of the host country. It's somehow considered the most sophisticated mandate in the OSCE world, in the OSCE field presence, because we are hosted by a country which is a very important participating state of the organization itself, chairing it a few years ago, in 2015, if you remember. And at the same time, together with partnership, and I go to the focus of everything we do, is ownership, which means that the drive has to be by citizens, institutions, by the country which is hosting us. We can facilitate, we can help. But at the same time, we cannot do any single activity without having a vision, more strategic vision, a regional vision. And that's also a way of acting. If you think of fight against organized crime or trafficking of migrants, areas on which I will try to elaborate 1 second after, this would not make any sense to think that within any national borders. And that's where our soft way of working comes. I always say that OSCE is probably the softest of soft powers, but at the same time is the one which is left going deeper than anybody else into the essence of what a state is, what a rule of law state is. And this is exactly because what we offer is not a huge amount of money, but it's a very wise amount of competence, of know-how, of a way, of an inclusive way to work. But at the same time, this doesn't mean that we only organize nice conferences, nice meetings. Sometimes that is part of our job. Sometimes the so-called convening power, which is the only power universally recognized to OSCE, is essential. When you get to a very polarized situation, and I think in several areas you can imagine, I'm thinking of the media situation at a certain point, and of course of the overall sometimes situation, who can help in having really all practices around the same table is very often the OSCE, also because of its fragilities. Its fragilities are its strength. Everybody knows that we do not have a hidden agenda. Our agenda is very clear, is to help, assist in a concrete way. But there are things which simply exist also because we were here. Just a couple of examples. There is a very well-functioning network of special prosecutors against organized crime in the region and beyond. It started here. It started in Belgrade. Then it was developed in Rome. And then it was enlarged to the whole region and beyond. Lately, even Greece has to enter that. And that is something which is very concrete. It means the special prosecutors started exchanging information, exchanging data, and that determined a lot of arrests, for instance, or seizures all across Europe, because a cross-cutting vision has also to be there. Every activity has to be focused on in a strategic way, and that's the way we try to work. When you hear about this exoteric thing, which is one of the many exoteric things of the OSCE, the comprehensive approach to security, that's exactly that. Environment counts, youth counts, gender counts, any single activity, fight against organized crime counts, has to be included in the same vision, the strategic aim. Reforms are the less easy thing to do for any country, of course, but when there is, of course, will of doing that, you need also to find best practices. That's also what the OSCE wants always to do, to include the civil society. For instance, the civil oversight over security sector is something which is essential. We were the first ones helping civil society to be included into that oversight. And then, of course, there are these macro areas where we have, and we are called, upon invitation of the host country, to give, and upon request of the host country, to always change our assistance to a different and evolving needs, very, very fastly evolving needs. Of course, the rule of law is the essence of our assistance, and the independence of the judiciary is certainly our aim. But at the same time, the role of the parliament, the role of independent bodies, the oversight role of parliament is something which requires a very specific attention, with very specific also projects, which I am of course ready to share with you any moment. While at the same time, media, of course, and that's why we have a specific media department, is essential. Not only media freedom, which is absolutely the starting point, but also the media professionalism and also the media literacy by the audience. That's why we include, for instance, young people in all of our activities. And we have now this year a specific project which will make youth the starting point of any single activity we do. We had it already in an implicit way, and we are now creating a kind of model which should be of help also for other organizations and for other system field operations in the region. I was mentioning things which exist also thanks to the fact that we are here. When I came here, the immigration issue was very high on the agenda, and I think we can expect it might come again. And we helped make much more operational a task force which had been created, putting together for the first time prosecutors and police officers for the fight against traffickers, migrant trafficking, and with a small but concrete donation, some cars, some IT equipment, thanks to some donors, including Italy and Austria, and on that occasion, we were able to make them operational in few days. They had the legal framework was great, the staff was great. Just it was needed something for once, not a meeting, but something more concrete. So nothing enormous. When I think of what we do, for instance, with the prisons, you cannot expect to assist the one building prison, but certainly you can expect to assist the one helping the rehabilitation and then inclusion in civil society of inmates. That's what we do with some specific programs, for instance, in Sremska Mitrovica, which what we like is when we act as a multiplier. One project which is pilot and which then become the normal way of acting of the society which is having us, of the authorities which are hosting us. That's somehow our contribution, exactly to build a way of working, to build something which goes, which becomes a systemic part of the way of being of a country, of a way of being of the rule of law of the country, which is so somehow not too much influenced by the cycles and by the crisis which we are facing. You know, now we are discussing about the crisis of a model. Some years ago we were discussing about crisis of different models. Maybe the idea is that every country has to try to shape its own model, interconnected with the rest of neighbors, for instance. That's probably the idea, and that's what we try to do. We, you know, I see never comes with magic formulas. We don't have, certainly. But we come with some best practices, and not in order not to create a Frankenstein. That is sometimes the temptation. You take one thing from the German constitution, one from the American, one from the Norwegian, and then you create a Frankenstein if you don't adapt to the real needs of the country, to the needs of citizens. In the end, citizens are those who benefit from the activities. They're also those who pay for our activities, and the 57 countries are all together doing that. And I feel that responsibility very, very, very much. So it's really essential, I think, that we start this reflection today, and the Belgrade Security Forum is the place to do that. It has many things in common with us. Open to everybody. Our door is never closed to any interlocutor who would like to talk to us, anyone. But also leaving really free ground, not only for speech and discussion, but then for action. There are many things which in this country exist also because they were a starting point in a discussion around one of those nice rooms at Hyatt, or this one specifically, because this is always the one for side events, and side events are usually going to very central issues, and that's somehow the driving force. So that's why we wanted to give a sign of our support. That's why I think that there can really be not only food for thought, but real essence for a propellant, for having a frame, for having a platform which really gives to dialogue some very concrete force. That's what we do. I could have 100 examples of projects, which each of them itself is relatively small, but very much to the point, upon request. And the idea is exactly to find these things having a strategic vision and helping the country to accomplish its very ambitious goals of reform. And for sure, the country can count every day on us, every moment. We have very talented people. In many cases, persons are projects themselves. And that's a little bit the idea, to be concrete, going strategic in a cross-cutting way. Thank you very much and have a great discussion.